Good morning, guys! My name's The Last Bacon, not my actual name, and today we're gonna be talking about studying video games. Now currently, I'm a third-year student at a university, studying a course of video game architecture and development, and when I tell that to some people, they get a bit confused. They don't really think studying video games is a real thing, or they think it's just like some made-up online degree that's never gonna land you a job anywhere, and they don't genuinely understand what studying video games involves. I'm also sure for a lot of you, there's probably quite a few myths and tales that you believe about studying video games that might not actually be true at all. So today I figured I would make a video discussing some of these, which might in turn help some of you guys if you're deciding where to go for university, and you just figured, hey, I might as well study video games, right? That's a thing. So this might help you understand what the study involves, and hey, maybe you can show this to your parents if they're not approving of that decision to alleviate some of the fears they might be having. Anyways, with that out of the way, today we're going to be discussing the top 5 myths about studying video games. Now starting us right off, I already touched up on this at the start. There's a lot of people who don't think studying video games is a real study, as in you actually go to school, you have assignments, and then you get a degree at the end. There are some people who think it's just like some sort of a fun course that you take that lasts a few months, that you then get like a meaningless freaking plaque out of that you can just hang on your wall at home. But no, that's not actually how it works. Video game architecture or video game development is a real course that you can study on quite a few universities actually. In a sense, it's very similar to any other kind of software development, and at the end of it, you will most likely get a degree in applied sciences if you, well, pass, obviously. And in the same way as in many other fields, you can either go the bachelor way or you can go the extra step and get a master's degree. Regarding the other stuff, for all terms and purposes, it's pretty much the same. You obviously go to school, you have assignments, and you need to study a lot on your own. The only difference in comparison to other studies is that the topic of what you're actually learning are video games and video game development. Now moving on straight into myth number 2, and that's that all you do in this study is just play video games. I've actually heard that like once or twice from someone. So unfortunately, or maybe not, that's obviously not the truth. There is a lot more that goes into studying video games than just playing games. It's kind of like saying that if you go study movie making or study to be a director, all you do is watch movies, right? Obviously, when I'm working on a project or I'm developing a game, I will take a lot of inspiration and I will do a lot of research into other games which might either be competitors or they might have done something that I think they did really well. So I would like to replicate it to an extent for the game that I and my team are developing. Does this involve a lot of playing other games? Yes, of course, it's one of the best ways to experience them. However, I'm sure you can understand that playing a game for just having fun and playing a game to actually research, take notes while you're doing it is quite a bit different. But unfortunately, no, the whole study is not about playing games. And now, even though this might come off as a surprise, I actually think I'm playing fewer games now that I'm studying game development than I was before. Now moving on to myth number 3, and I've heard this one said quite a lot, and that's that you have to be a programmer in order to study video game development. Now this is obviously not true. Coming back to the example of movie making, it's like saying in order to study any profession related to movie making, you have to be a cameraman. There's a lot more that goes into the process of creating a video game than just the programming aspect. And of course, programming is incredibly important, but that doesn't mean there isn't a whole world of other professions outside of programming that you can study, whether that be the sound design, whether it be the managerial part, being the producer or being the team manager, whether it be the design part like I study, or whether it be the art part, being an animator, creating models, creating textures, rigging stuff. There's a whole world outside of programming within the game development spectrum that you can study and that you can get good at, that doesn't necessarily involve memorizing some syntax and typing code every day of the week. Now, does having some information and some knowledge of how programming works and understanding the basic principles help? Of course it does. Kind of like with any profession that revolves around working in a large team, understanding what other people do, at least on a high level, can definitely help you smoothen the workflow and in general just have a better time communicating with people. On a small note, putting like a half point myth in here, there's also a whole bunch of people that believe studying video games requires you to be able to draw really well, and literally the same thing that I said about programming applies in this situation. If you want to study making concept art, well, yes, being able to draw really well would be of quite a great help. However, if you want to be a programmer, or if you want to be a producer, for example, or the sound designer, drawing might help you present some ideas to your team or explain yourself if you're designing a level, but it's most definitely not necessary to be able to draw like Picasso. Now moving on to myth number 4, and this is the one that I feel like a lot of parents might be worried about, and that's the one that you cannot get a job outside of video game making if you study and get a degree in video game development. Now, I can somewhat understand where this fear is coming from. I mean, the whole study is kind of still a bit out there. It's not exactly norm to study video games. It's not as common as studying law, for example. And for the people who don't understand, they might obviously think that this is the case. If you study video games, you finish the study, you can only get a job at creating video games. Now, this is also not true. I already mentioned at the start how video game making is very similar to any other software development. I mean, it is software development, just the software that you're making happens to be a video game. A lot of the positions that you can study and get good at have applications outside of this media in, for example, creating movies, doing animation, doing marketing. If you're doing production, you learn a whole lot about team management that is universally applicable to a lot of projects. If you study sound design, you can get into composing or creating soundtracks for movies or other forms of media. As I already mentioned in the Not Everyone Has to Be a Programmer, there's a whole world outside of video games that you can still apply for if you happen to finish this study and don't want to continue making games for some reason, which I don't know why you would do that. But hey, the option is always there. And finally, I feel like this point is a bit funny, but I have heard it expressed a few times actually, and that's if you go study video games, everyone there is just going to be an antisocial weirdo where no one talks to each other, and you just all do your own thing, and then you finish the study, get your degree, and you never see the people again. And once again, I can maybe see where this is coming from. Maybe in your high school, a lot of the more introverted people like playing video games, and so you might potentially make that connection, but there's really no connection there to be made. Video game development is a hugely team-based effort. Of course, you have indie companies or smaller studios, which might just be 1, 2, or just a few people. But in general, whenever you're working in a larger company, you're going to be working and constantly communicating with a large team of people, and that is exactly what the study prepares you for. At this point, I've already developed quite a few games in which I had to interact with a big team of people for quite an extensive amount of time, and not being able to do that, not being able to talk to other people, not being able to communicate, express yourself, and give out your opinions is most definitely going to make the study really difficult, if not impossible, for you to finish. So does everyone have the best people skills that comes in there? Well, of course not, but you need to learn them, keep developing them, and improve on them as you continue down your professional path in order to be successful in this industry. And finally, I'm just going to squeeze in like a half myth in here, because I've heard some people think that you can only start video game development studies if you've already developed a few games, or if you're already like a small indie developer or something. Now, this is obviously not the case. Not everyone that goes to study video games has a list of things that they've already released and published. Obviously, when you're applying, there's going to be quite a few people that you need to be picked from, so you are going to have a portfolio which shows the materials that you've done. But in most cases, those don't have to be finished games or finished products. For me personally, my portfolio involved a couple of small games that I just programmed in my free time, a couple of worked out video game designs, and some drawings and some concept art, because I honestly wasn't sure which direction in the game development industry I wanted to take at the start. But hey guys, you know, if it worked out for me, there's a solid chance if you put in the effort, it's gonna work out for you too. Anyways, that is it for this video. I hope you guys found it at least a bit informative and helpful. If you're out there just finished high school and trying to decide what university to go to, I get that it can be stressful, but you know what, in the end, I would just emphasize that follow your dreams. Why the hell not? And hey, if you're a parent and you're watching this and you're still not all the way behind your kid's decision to go study video games, I get you, I feel you, but I would just recommend looking up some stuff, reading up about it online if this video was enough for you, and I'm sure you can help alleviate a lot of the fears that you might be feeling right now. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope it was helpful. If you're interested in game development or game design, I have a whole bunch of videos on my channel where I talk about this kind of stuff, so make sure to check it out. I'm gonna leave you guys with that. I wish you the best off today, and I'm gonna see you in whatever next video I make. Bye bye.